Hello everyone and welcome. In this video I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the South Korean zombie show All of Us Are Dead. This video will contain spoilers from the entire show, so please do keep that in mind. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin. All of Us Are Dead is a show about a zombie outbreak that mainly takes place at a South Korean high school, Haeosun High. It turns out that Mr. Lee, who is one of the science teachers at the school, is actually responsible for creating the zombie virus. Now you might be thinking to yourselves, Josh, that is a pretty big spoiler to be starting this review with, right? But the thing is, All of Us Are Dead, it doesn't hold back when it comes to explaining its zombie origins and explaining, why the virus started. Which for me, I found to be quite refreshing, because normally zombie stories, they hold their cards quite close to their chest. They don't want you to find out why the virus happened. And normally that's, part of the mystery. How did the outbreak happen? And, you might be watching a show for 6 seasons and then they finally explain why the virus, where the virus came from and why the zombies are there. And ultimately that normally just ends up being underwhelming anyway, because you already have an idea in your head by that point and, you've already thought about it and it's never going to match up to your expectations. So I like the fact that, in the first couple of episodes, it was already explained to us. It was already explained to us where the virus came from. Episode 2 explains Mr. Lee's motivations as to why he created the virus. And it's quite refreshing. It's quite refreshing. I mean, I prefer that to having to sit through seasons of a show, to find an answer that's probably underwhelming anyway, to be given, an answer that, just kind of falls flat. I like that the show was like, right, here's the virus, here's why it happened, just enjoy the rest of the show. I like that. I also really like the reasoning as to why Mr. Lee created the virus in the first place, because most zombie stories, what normally happens is like a shady organization or some kind of government create the virus, create zombies because they want soldiers. They want soldiers and they want to fight and they want to take over the world, blah, blah, blah. But of course, then it goes wrong and they make zombies. So it normally, there's normally a military angle to it. And I like that that wasn't the case in this show. Mr. Lee just made the virus because he wanted it to make his son stronger so his son could stand up to his bullies. It's very simple, but I liked it. And you could argue that injecting your son with an untested virus, an untested substance is a pretty extreme solution to bullying. But this show does go to great lengths as to show why Mr. Lee did this, and it shows the extent of how bad his son was bullied to the point of trying to commit suicide. I really got a sense that Mr. Lee kind of exhausted all of his options when it came to trying to protect his son and trying to do something about the bullying. I mean, for example, there's a scene which takes place at the school where he is in this room with the parents of the other bullied kids, and basically the teachers are there with the bullies and the children who are bullied, and they're trying to find out what's going on. So they ask the bullies what's happening, and the bullies, they come up with the old typical excuse of, oh, we're just playing, just a bit of fun. And then they ask the bullied kids what really happened, and the bullied kids agree with the bullies. They go, yeah, it's just fun, it's just a bit of harmless fun. And of course, the bullied kids in that situation are going to say that because they're scared. They're scared of the repercussions. They're scared of what happens if they come out and criticize the bullies, And there's a scene when Mr. Lee's son says, yeah, it was just joking, I don't want any more action taken, we were just joking. And he just like hangs his head. He's like, oh no. He's like, why did you not stand up for yourself? Why did you let them get away with it? I mean, I understand why, because he would have got bullied more. But at the same time, if no one does anything about it, it's just going to carry on. Mr. Lee still tries to bring it up to teachers, but, to them, it's done and dusted. They try and sweep it under the carpet. He tries to go to the police, but, the police say to him, what do you want me to do? Arrest the kids? We can't do anything about it. He even moves his son to another school, but the bullies still find him and they still make his life a living hell. So you kind of feel like this guy just reached the end of his tether. He tried everything. He tried everything he could. He tried moving his son away. He tried telling his son to stand up to them. He even tried going to the teachers, police, but they didn't care. They didn't care, and that's why he did what he did. And I like that. I like the reasoning behind it. I like that this show, even though it's a show about kids fighting zombies, there are very serious themes to it, and it tries to make a serious point about bullying, about how bullying in schools does go unchecked a lot of time, and how authorities don't do enough about it. I mean, there's another character, I think her name is Eunji, who is bullied to the point where she wants to commit suicide as well, and her bullies are like ripping her clothes off and trying to post pictures of her on the internet nude, and she's basically sexually assaulted. And yeah, there's a lot of serious themes in this show, a lot of points it makes about bullying, which it doesn't shy away from, which I really like. All of Us Are Dead has a massive cast, well, at least it does at the start of the show until most of them die. But anyway, during the first couple of episodes, I kind of found it hard to just relate to a lot of them. I wasn't invested in many of them, but, I gave it more time. And by the end of the show, yeah, a lot of characters that I end up liking. For the most part, the characters are really well written, and they're written like kids, and I can believe that they're school kids, and yeah, I like them. Apart from this dude who does not look like a school kid. I mean, when I saw this guy, I thought, my God, this guy's got to be older than me. He's not a school kid. Yeah, and it turns out he is actually born in 1987, so he's 4 years older than me. He's like, 34, and he's playing an 18-year-old. But apart from him, the rest of the characters, they're well casted, and yeah, they're well-written kids. The dialogue in this show, it does have, it's kind of K-drama, soppy moments, but for the most part, it's fine. I liked it. I think the kids are really, kind of well-written, and they seem like actual kids in the way that they're joking with one another, and, they're bantering with one another. So, for example, there's a character who is referred to as Bear Sue because he doesn't like wearing socks, and they call him Bear Sue and make fun of him, for saying that his feet stink. Whereas Dae-soo calls himself Woo Jin's brother-in-law. He's always like, "Hey, brother-in-law," and he says that because he fancies his friend's sister. And I like that. I like the banter between the children. I like them joking with one another because it makes it seem like they are actually friends, and it makes it seem believable. There's also an awkwardness to the kids, especially when it comes to them expressing their feelings for the opposite sex. And again, this makes them feel more genuine and more real. I mean, it does seem like every kid in this show has the hots for someone else, and that every kid in this show fancies someone. But that's what happens at high school, that's what happens when you're that age. So I don't mind that. Sometimes when the characters express their feelings, it goes well, like when Lee Soo expresses his feelings for Nam Ra. And then sometimes it goes incredibly badly, like when Dae-soo expresses his feelings for Harry, I believe her name is, and she basically responds by throwing gym equipment at him and basically going mad and going crazy. So I like that. Even though this story is very dark at times with its themes, there's a lot of talk about suicide and bullying, and it's very dark with those themes, but it doesn't let the comedic moments kind of undercut the more serious moments. It doesn't do what Marvel does a lot of the time. It has jokes, it does have laugh out loud jokes, but they're not there when a character's being eaten. It's not like Marvel Zombies where someone dies and they make a joke. It has jokes, but they work. I'll admit, when I first started watching this show, I was a bit worried about the prospect of 12 episodes just set in a school setting, because I was kind of thinking to myself, this is going to get boring real soon. This is going to get boring. And even though the majority of the show is set in the school, thankfully, we do jump to different locations and different characters. It isn't just all about the school kids. Within the school itself, we have different characters, different groups of characters. So we have the main group, who are the core cast of characters. Then we have this group of archers who have returned from a field trip or for a tournament, I believe. And they're in a different part of the school, and they then cross over and meet up with the main characters. And then we have, some other characters who are just off doing their own thing. And I like that. It keeps things interesting. Outside of the school, we follow a number of different characters as well and see things play out from different points of view. So, for example, we follow Onjo's father, who's a firefighter, and we see him trying to deal with the outbreak in the city and then trying to get to his daughter. We see things play out at a refugee camp. We see things play out via this detective who is trying to get to Mr. Lee's laptop because apparently that has, information about a cure on it. So there is a lot of variety in the show that kind of stops, the school setting from feeling stale, because it likes to jump to different places, which is something, that Fear the Walking Dead could take note of. Stop having these episodes about just one character. It's boring. I like it. I like shows which jump to different places and, you don't have to just watch one group of characters for 60 minutes. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that, so I'm glad that this show doesn't do that. However, even though the show does jump back and forth between a lot of different locations, I will admit that, by the end of the series, I was sick of the school. I don't think the characters leave it until the last episode, and when it came to episode 7 or 8, I was just thinking, can we please move on now? Can we please go somewhere else? I don't think this show needed to be as long as it was. Certainly not for 12 episodes of characters stuck in the school. It feels like it kind of repeats itself a lot with the school stuff. One of the biggest complaints I have about this show, besides what I'm going to mention in the next section, is that the story at the school, the plots at the school, kind of felt like you were playing an RPG game. It's kind of a lot of fetch quests and a lot of, go here, find that. Okay, now we've got that. Now we've got to go here. Now we've got to find that. Now we've got to go here and find that. And it just got a bit boring. And I also feel like there's a lot of artificial roadblocks in the way that just kind of, every time the characters were about to achieve something else came up, and then they had to go and solve that, and then something else came up. So, for example, in episode 3, the characters want to find a computer because they want to access the internet. So they find this computer, but then a zombie appears, and one of the characters picks up the computer and throws it at a zombie, and it breaks the computer. So they then decide that they're going to need to get some mobile phones, and the mobile phones were previously confiscated by the teacher. So they think to themselves, right, if we can get the phones, we can access the internet via the phones. But by the time they get to the room, Unji is there and she's destroying all the phones. And then when they do finally get a phone, it turns out that the government have turned off the internet and turned off, reception in the area, so they can't use it anyway. So then they decide to go to the roof, and then they can't get to the roof because the roof's locked. So they're like, the door to the roof is locked, and some kid is there. This other kid's on the roof, and the helicopter lands, and he says, I'm the only survivor, and they all get left there. Then they do get to the roof, and then another helicopter comes. And then when the helicopter is about to take them to safety, they get a message from like their camp, and it's like, no, we're not taking any survivors now because they could all be infected. Leave them. And then they get stuck on the roof, and they're still stuck at the school. And it's hard to explain, but it felt like, when you're playing a video game and you're kind of like coming to the end point, and then you do something and you think, right, that's it. And it's like, no, now you've got to go do this. And it's like, oh, now you're stuck. Now you're stuck in this area because now this has happened. Now you've got to go do this. Now you've got to go do this. And yeah, I don't know. I just found it to be a very tedious way of telling a story. It felt like the characters were playing snakes and ladders, and every time they were near the finish line, near the end of the board game, they got to that massive snake at the end and fell all the way down and started all over again. Because that's what it felt like. Because every time they were going to achieve something, it's like, now this has happened. Now this has happened. And in a way, I like that because it shouldn't be easy in a zombie apocalypse, and I think some of the points are interesting, like the government turning off the internet because they don't want information to leak, and that's something that I could see happening. I think that's a valid point. It's a good kind of social commentary angle and whatever. But it also just felt like these were like the unluckiest characters in the world because every time they were going to do something happened which just put a spanner in the works and ruined their plans actually. And it's a bit annoying by the end. This show is certainly not afraid to live up to its name. I mean, it kills off so many characters. I mean, it has a pretty big cast to start out with, but yeah, it just kills so many of them. It kills characters who you wouldn't expect to die. It kills main characters. And, even when it gets to the point in the story where I think, right, no one's going to die now. The characters, they're nearly safe. No one's going to die. It kills more characters. And I guess if, you like the idea of a show that keeps you on your toes, and if you want to be shocked by character deaths, and if you want a show that's going to surprise you, you might love this. You might really enjoy this. But for me, I mean, yeah, in a way I liked it because it does make every zombie encounter feel scary, and they're a genuine threat. But on the other hand, I just kind of think it kills a lot of characters who could have offered more to the story, and it sometimes kills characters in really bizarre ways. And at times it feels like the writers were kind of like, right, we've got to kill characters in every episode. We've got to kill characters every 30 minutes. So let's just kill this person. It's like they just picked a random name. And they're like, right, you're going to die now. And it's going to be in the most random way possible. Yeah, a lot of the deaths just were kind of bizarre. And I kind of felt there was more that they could have done with a lot of characters. Admittedly, some of the deaths did have a big impact on me. I mean, when Na Yun killed Gong Su in episode 3... yeah, that really pissed me off. Like, that really hit me because I know it was only 3 episodes into the show, but he was a likable guy. I liked him, and she basically infected him with zombie blood just because she didn't like him. She was an absolute arsehole. So yeah, that really hit me hard. And also the death of, I think it's Jun Yong, I believe his name is, the dude with the glasses who dies at the gymnasium. So he gets bit whilst the characters try and make it through the gym to the door on the other side. Like, they've got this makeshift barricade, which is quite clever how they make it. They kind of just put all this gym equipment together and tie it up and make it into a circle so that it protects them and try to get to the other side. And he's bitten, and at that point he realizes he's going to die. He doesn't cry about it. He doesn't just feel sorry for himself. He's like, right, I'm just going to climb over and I'm going to save you guys. I'm going to save your life. I'm going to distract the zombies. And again, that was emotional. I felt for him. I felt really sad in that scene. But on the whole, I think a lot of the deaths in this show just were a bit dumb. A lot of the characters die in really unsatisfying ways, and I understand that this show pulls from horror tropes and horror movies, and which generally kill a lot of people off. But I just found myself disappointed a lot of the time. For example, Ji Min, I think her name is, she's done really dirty in her death because at this time, like, they're running away from the zombies, they're running through the school, like through the fields, and one of her friends falls over and hurts her leg, and instead of like staying with her, she just runs off on her own and then gets eaten. And that just seemed like so out of character because up until that point, there was nothing to suggest to me that she would do that she would leave one of her friends, and that she would make such a weird decision to run off on her own. That was just really bizarre. And Na Yoon, who I previously mentioned was responsible for the death of Gong Su, again, she just felt completely wasted because she kills this dude and she disappears for like 3 episodes. And then it turns out that she's just like hiding in this pantry behind this door. And then she exits the pantry and she's eaten by Guinam, the villain. And I was just like, what was the point? What was the point? Like, we kind of set her up as a villain only for her to disappear for 3 episodes and then reappear and she's eaten. It was just so unsatisfying. It was like they didn't know what to do with her character, you know? I really felt like they missed an opportunity for her to team up with Guinam because both of these characters shared no love for the protagonist, so they should have really been working together. But instead, they set her up as a killer only to like have her eaten. I mean, she got what was coming to her, but it was just so unsatisfying. I thought they were going to do something big with her character because they put a lot of focus and attention into her and then she just disappears and dies. So, yeah. Dr. Lee dies in episode 4, which again I felt was extremely underwhelming because he was a really interesting character. And then what happens is the show like brings him back in flashbacks and via video logs for the rest of the series. And it kind of reminded me of when in Saw 3 they kill Jigsaw, and then every Saw movie after that they still have to bring Saw back, or Jigsaw back, sorry, because they realise that they fucked up by killing the main villain of the franchise. And that's what it kind of feels like here. They killed this really interesting character off and it's like, right, oh shit, we better bring him back now, better bring him back. They should have just kept him alive. What was probably the most irritating death to me was the death of Sojo, who I mentioned earlier was the firefighter, and he was the one looking for his daughter Onjo. And, you know, we spend most of the show with him, watching him trying to get back to her, watching him go through like infested cities, watching him deal with dangerous people, trying to get to her. And then when he does get to her, it turns out he's been bitten and he sacrifices himself and he dies. And then shortly after, in the same episode, well, it might have been before this, I'm not sure. But anyway, in the same episode, Chong-Su, is it Chong-Su? I believe Chong-Son? Let me double check. Chong-San, sorry, both wrong. Chong-San, who is the main character of this show, he dies as well. But, you know, I wrote in my notes at this point, will you please stop killing people for 5 fucking minutes? Because it's just too much. It's just too much. You know, again, if you just want to watch a show where people die at a time, you know, and people you don't expect to die, you'll love this show. But for me, I was just thinking, please just stop fucking killing people, please. Please just stop doing it. It's really pissing me off now. I mean, people complain that The Walking Dead kills all its likeable characters, but this is 10 times worse. It just kills everyone. I appreciate that this show borrows, you know, from the horror genre and horror tropes. And, you know, in a lot of horror movies, they just kill off loads of people. But I don't know, I didn't like it. I guess it depends what kind of show you're looking for. Like I said, if you just want to see loads of people die, you'll love this show. But for me, I feel like so many of the characters were wasted. The zombies in this show are fast zombies. They're like the zombies in the Netflix show Kingdom, which is another fantastic South Korean zombie show. And yeah, they're scary. I mean, you get bitten quickly, you turn quickly. When you turn, you know, it's like their bodies are like contorting and you hear bones cracking, and yeah, they're pretty scary. And, you know, after watching this in Kingdom in quick succession, I mean, I watched Kingdom not too long ago, I'm kind of the opinion now that fast zombies are just better. I prefer shows where there are fast zombies because they feel like more of a threat. Train to Busan had these quick zombies as well. I mean, I guess that slow zombies work for The Walking Dead because that show is more about the people, you know, rather than the undead, even though they're moving towards that now. But yeah, I'm convinced that fast zombies are just better. I also love how difficult the zombies are to kill in this show. I mean, aside from the archers, who obviously have, you know, the advantage of having bow and arrows, having weapons, there aren't many students who end up killing zombies at the school at all. I mean, I know Guinam does because he has a knife, but the rest of them, they're just kind of trying to get away. They're just pushing the zombies away. They're just jumping out of the way, or, you know, pushing them, or just hitting them and running. And yeah, I like how difficult the zombies are. They're definitely not cannon fodder, you know, like they are in The Walking Dead. I mean, there's a scene in the last episode, I believe, where the characters are fighting on the street, and one of them has a hammer, and he's hammering away at this zombie in the head, hitting him over and over again. And the zombie just isn't dying, you know? And it's a stark contrast, again, going back to The Walking Dead, where I remember a scene of Morgan who hits a zombie in the head with his stick. Like, he doesn't stab the zombie through the head with his stick. He literally hits a zombie in the side of the head, which somehow kills it. But in this show, you've got this dude hammering the zombie over and over again, and it won't die. And I really liked that. I liked how difficult they were. I liked how much of a threat they were. Even though the action scenes did get a bit repetitive by the end of the series, I do still like the fact that, you know, it never felt like the characters had the upper hand. It always felt scary, you know, it always felt like they were in danger, and I think that is to be commended. Anyway, let's talk about the Hambies, which is a term coined by Dae-soo to refer to those who are half human and half zombie. So it's revealed at about the halfway point in the show that not everyone who is bitten by a zombie dies. In fact, some people who are bitten by a zombie, they're infected with like a mutated strain of the virus, which allows them to retain their intellect, but they basically need to feed. And yeah, this kind of reminds me a bit of vampires, because they have like enhanced abilities, but they also want to eat. They also want to eat people. You know, for example, like I think Nam Ra is able to kind of smell zombies over a large distance, and she's able to, you know, to say how many zombies there are without even seeing them, which makes me think of Daredevil, because he has a similar power where, you know, if he's in a building, at the top floor of a building, he could smell someone 10 floors below and tell you what they smell of and where they are, how many people there are, etc. So they have these enhanced abilities. You know, they have it. They're able to like kind of heal themselves as well. And yeah, they also, like I said, they also have this urge to feed. Guinam doesn't even fight this urge. He just goes around eating whoever he wants, but the dude's a psychopath anyway, so that kind of makes sense. Whereas Namra, you know, she actively fights against her urges, and, you know, at points she's almost close to a breakdown because she gets so scared about thinking of eating the other characters and wanting to eat them, and, you know, trying to stop herself, and she's worried about what she's going to do, basically. And, you know, come the end of the show, she basically exiles herself and lives separately to the rest of the characters. This isn't a concept which I've came across before. You know, like I said, you see it in vampire movies, but I've not seen a zombie show where people could, you know, retain their intelligence, but, you know, pick up traits of the zombies. Yeah, it's not something I've seen before. I liked it. I liked its uniqueness. I'm also glad that the Hambies exist, simply because of the fact that it allows Unji to survive, because, you know, I thought she was dead, and if she died, my God, that would have been so bleak, because this is the girl who was sexually assaulted and who was bullied in school, and then she decides that she wants to try and get the phones, like try and smash up all the phones and destroy the phones, because it's revealed that when the bullies took pictures of her on the phone, they set it to a timer so it would upload on the internet, and then her nude pictures are going to go live. So she wants to get to the phones to try and stop that happening. But then when she's on her way to the phone, she's overwhelmed by zombies and gets eaten. And, you know, I was just thinking, Jesus Christ, can you imagine this character who's been sexually assaulted, tries to get to her, try to stop the nudes of her leaking, and then she dies whilst doing that. That would be so fucking depressing. So I'm glad that she managed to survive, because I was thinking, they can't kill her, surely. I was just thinking, is this how she's going to die? After being abused and then having her nudes go on the internet and then she dies? I was thinking, you can't do this. So thankfully, they did keep her alive, although I don't think the show really does enough with her after she becomes a Hambie. You know, she kind of just like sets fire to the school and then leaves. I mean, now she's kind of in a military base, you know, in a refugee camp, and she is being experimented on. So I assume maybe she's going to have a bigger role to play next season. I hope so, because I like that she stayed alive, but I don't think they did enough with her after that point. I'm also hopeful that my boy Chong Sang is a Hambie and that he survives next season, because, yeah, I really liked him. It's a shame they killed him off, and, you know, we see him in this explosion, but we don't see his dead body. You know, he's not dead until he's actually dead. We don't see him dead, so you never know. Guinam, who, as I already previously mentioned, you know, gives into his zombie urges. Yeah, he becomes a Hambie and he loves it. You know, he says that the school is his heaven now, because he has the powers to do what he wants. You know, he's able to evade the zombies. Zombies don't detect you if you're a Hambie, and, you know, he now has like enhanced strength and he's able to regenerate, and he's a bully anyway, so he loves this. So for him, you know, this is like he says, his idea of heaven. I mean, he was already an arsehole before he got, you know, the zombie infection anyway. I mean, there's scenes of him like throwing multiple people into zombies so they die and so that he survives. He kills the principal of the school, I believe, just because he can. Yeah, he's an absolute piece of shit, and he's like this show's version of Nemesis. You know, like when you're playing Resident Evil and Nemesis is always there. You go to a new area and he's there. He's constant. He's like the fucking Terminator. If the Terminator or Nemesis had a bad mullet, you know, he's kind of unstoppable. Although I will admit, I did find it funny how many times this guy gets thrown off a building. I think I counted 5 times in which he's up against the protagonists and they throw him off the side of a building or like throw him out of a window, and then you have to wait like the next episode for him to climb back up and then fight them again. You know, by the end of the show, I was just thinking, please just fucking kill this guy. This is getting ridiculous, you know, just constantly him falling off building after building. It just became a bit of a joke by the end. But, you know, he's an okay villain, I suppose. He's a bit one note. He's just an evil bastard. But yeah, he does the job. I don't think he's the best villain, you know, in the world, but he's all right, I suppose. Orangibberish. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name, but anyway, I didn't really know where to say this in the rest of the review, where to put this in, so I'm just going to do a brief talk about this character now, because he's one of my favourite characters in the entire show. And yes, I know he's only like a a joke character. You know, he's only there for a couple of skits, and we don't really see a lot of him, but I really liked him. So basically, this dude is a vlogger or like some kind of YouTuber, and he decides that he's going to go to the zombie site, you know, the outbreak site, because he wants to expose the truth to his followers. And what happens is basically he goes there, and it's just him running around getting nearly killed by zombies, you know, whilst his followers basically take the piss out of him and troll him. And I just thought it was hilarious, you know, like he's running around getting chased by zombies, and then he has these comments come up saying, "You should have brought a gun, you idiot," or stuff like, "Oh, you're gonna die, but your footage will help us. Rest in peace." Like, I love the fact that this dude's like scared for his life. His life is on the line, and people are just trolling him, because I can believe that that is what people would do on the internet. I can 100% believe that people would do that in that situation. So I think it's a very good parody of, you know, internet culture. There's also another scene of his that I really liked, where he goes to what he thinks is an abandoned school or abandoned nursery, I believe. And he enters the building, and he's immediately chased out by these scary zombie kids. And it kind of reminded me of a scene in, I think it was Dead Space 2, the game Dead Space 2, where you go into another abandoned nursery and like these zombie babies appear and you have to fight them. Kind of reminded me of that. I liked that. But I also like the fact that, again, he was just getting trolled in the comments. Like, he's trying to survive. He's climbing up, you know, like the playground equipment, the slides, trying to get away from these children. And then people in his comments are going, "Lol, cute zombies." And again, just making a joke of the situation. I like that. You know, I liked that. I thought it was funny. I thought it was a good kind of skit, a good parody of internet culture. And I want to see more of his character in the next season. So to summarise, this show does have a lot of problems, especially, you know, when it comes to its pacing. I just think they spent way too long at the school, and they spend way too long, you know, on the characters doing tedious fetch quests. I mean, the story isn't exactly incredible with, you know, the plot lines that isn't that engrossing. It's just go to this place, find this, now go to this place, find this, go to this place, find this. It does get very tedious. I also think that, you know, there's too many characters who die, and it just feels like the writers didn't know what to do with a lot of characters, and a lot of characters get very unsatisfying story arcs. However, despite all that, I had a good time with it. I thought it was fun. There's good comedy in it. There's good action in it. The characters are very likable. It does touch on some serious themes, you know, such as bullying, and makes good points about them. It's flawed, but it's enjoyable. It's very good, you know. I've seen a lot of people say that this is the show I wanted from The Walking Dead. This is the best zombie show, and I don't agree with that. I mean, I still think if you're going to compare it to South Korean zombie shows, Kingdom is far better. Kingdom is head and shoulders above this show. It's so much better than that show. I mean, you should watch Kingdom. But this is still good. I think this is a solid, you know, a solid 7 out of 10, 7.5 out of 10. Good, enjoyable show. Good, enjoyable romp with entertaining characters, but frustrating, you know, story parts to it. But I liked it, and, you know, I hear that it's going to get a second season, and I'll be watching that as well. I want to find out what happens. I want to carry on, you know, with these characters, and it was decent. It was decent. Flawed, but good show. So overall, yeah, I liked it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How have you seen All of Us Are Dead? Do you like the show? Do you dislike it? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below, and I shall see you all very soon. Take care. Goodbye.